Heyo, welcome back. I am John Hartness. I'm the founder and publisher of Falstaff Books. I have edited dozens of science fiction, fantasy, and urban fantasy novels, as well as Do Not Start Chewing on My Chair, Furball. And now you look away like you're all innocent. Kids, right? I'm also the author of over 3 dozen novel-length works, including the Quincy Harker Demon Hunter series, the Black Knight Chronicles, and the Bub the Monster Hunter books. So when I talk about writing and publishing, I'm usually talking about things I'm familiar with. So today I want to talk about one of the myths of publishing and one of the myths of being a professional writer. And if you want to hear more of this kind of stuff from me, please remember to subscribe, like the video, because it really does help the channel quite a bit, and ring the bell to get notified. So there is a piece of advice that's given to a lot of new and unpublished and newly published writers, and that advice is you have to write every day. And that's not true. It's just not. I'm sorry. The vast majority of professional writers I know do not write every day. Sometimes we get burned out. Sometimes we have other things to do and we literally don't have time to write. Some of us are not really able to write outside of our little writerly space. I've been guilty of that myself. I have friends, Gail Martin, for example, is a brilliant example of a writer who's gonna get her words in whenever she needs to, no matter what. I've seen her leave the bar at conventions to go write between panels at conventions. I've known her to write in the car on the way to events. She can and does write anywhere. But anyway, I'm not Gail. I can't really write at conventions. It's not a mindset that I am in. There is value to developing a consistency about your writing. My friend Jake Bible, his deal used to be he wrote Monday through Friday. That was his writing period. He never wrote on the weekends. I haven't seen Jake in a few years. I don't know what his writing schedule is nowadays. Sometimes I'll get on that same kick and I write 5 days a week. They might not be Monday through Friday. It might be I write Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. But the way I tend to work is I give myself a certain amount of time to write a book. I have a pretty solid idea of how long the book is going to be, and I divide that up into chunks. I can usually write between 1,500 and 2,500 usable words in a day. So I need to write a 100,000 word book. I'm going to assume that that's 50 writing days. I'm going to give myself 10 to 12 weeks to knock that out. I can write a 100,000 word novel in roughly 3 months if I'm jamming on it. That's plenty. That's 400,000 word novels every year. That's a gracious damn plenty. You don't need to be out here hammering out 10,000 words a day. You don't need to be killing yourself to do that, because that way leads to burnout. It leads to frustration. And honestly, if I wanted to sit behind a computer and do the exact same thing for 8 hours every day for the rest of my life, I'd have stayed in my day job. I like writing. I love telling stories. And I'm very late because this has been a year, y'all. But I'm working. I've got about chapter and a half, 2 chapters left in the next Bubba novella, so I'll finish that before I head down to my sister's for Thanksgiving this week. But I've got other things I'm working on. I'm working on royalties. I'm working on setting up our Shopify store for our Black Friday sales event. There's a video floating around somewhere where I just brought in a case of Wesley Chu hardcovers that I got a really good deal on, and I'm selling those because I think the books are amazing and everyone should have them. And if I can use my little reach and make myself $10 a set, let's rock, let's do it. But this idea that you must be so regimented, it's really just not true. You can build a career off 1 book a year. You can build a career off 10 books a year. I very much used to ascribe to the belief that you have to write every day and you need to release at least a long short story or novelette every month. Well, a dozen years ago, that was a pretty good way to get started. Nowadays, the business is different. The business is shifted. And with a lot of the tools that people are using to create books, and the reason I'm putting all this in air quotes is because I'm talking about AI generated bullshit that's not really you writing. It's you plugging in a prompt, and you've got some pile of tech bro startup schmucks who are talking about doing 8,000 books in their first year. Go for it, kid. Knock yourself out. But 15 years into this business, if I've learned anything, it's that if you don't like writing, you should find something else to do. You should find something that's way easier, because everything is. Maybe not digging ditches. I've never dug ditches. I can only assume that it's very hard. So I love writing, and trying to shackle myself to my desk and hammer out 5,000 or 6,000 words every day, well, that makes me not like writing very much. I really only write for 2 or 3 hours a day when I'm writing. I got a lot of other stuff going on. Oh, you're back, huh? Yeah, come over here and let me pet your head. And that will have the added benefit of you not scratching up the tobacco basket decor that my wife so carefully put there. So you don't have to write every day. What you do need to do is work consistently. That means you need to work on your craft on the regular. If that means going to conventions, go to conventions. If you have one or no published works, then you're probably not going to get a free badge as a guest. But you can go to conventions and sit in the audience and listen to people who have 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 books out. You can learn from the things that we've done that have worked for us or that have kicked us in the teeth. I've sat on panels with people, and I once looked at Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough after her intro, where she said she had written something like 80 novels, and I said, my God, Quinn, I think you've written more books than I've read. Exaggeration for emphasis, obviously, on my part, but the woman is one of the pioneers of urban fantasy. She's an amazing writer, and she's produced so much work. I can absolutely learn things from sitting on a panel next to her. Imagine what you, with no books or one book under your belt, can learn sitting in the audience from folks like that. Folks like Chris Golden, folks like Sherilyn Kenyon, folks like Jim Butcher, who are just fantastic panelists, great writers with a ton of experience, a ton of really strong training. So go to conventions, go to conferences, find conferences for what you do. I don't really recommend that genre fiction writers go to most writers' conferences. They're too spread out in what they're covering, and they're going to have very few people at most writers' conferences that know anything about genre, and our corner of the business is very different from people writing nonfiction or poetry or memoir or even literary fiction or even something like magical realism. So if you're going to go to a conference and you're going to lay out that money, make sure that it's a conference with a hefty focus on the creation of genre fiction. I personally recommend the Saga Genre Fiction Writers Conference, but I'm dramatically biased because I run it and I created it. So you can find more on sagaconference.com once we update the website. But you don't have to write every day. What you have to do is figure out your rhythm. Figure out what your comfortable word count per day is. For me, it's about 2,000 on average. That's a good word count that I can sustain that for days on end and weeks on end without burning myself out. If I get much more than 3,000 or 4,000 words, you have to find the sweet spot for you. Oh, look, battery died on my light. Man, we're about 1,000 on this video, aren't we? But that's what I'm saying. There's other stuff in the world. You're going to have to figure out how to maximize your writing time, maximize your writing output, but you don't have to do it by chaining yourself to your desk every single day for hours and hours. You do have to figure out what is comfortable for you, what is continually productive for you, and what is sustainable for you. For me, roughly 2,000 words a day, 5 days a week is a good sustainable pace and lets me churn out a novella in about 3 weeks and a novel in 2 to 3 months. And that's what I'm looking to produce. So what are your writing goals? And what is your comfort level with a word count? And it's okay if it's 100, if it's 500. I was on a panel with Eric Flint at Dragon Con one time a few years ago. Rest in peace, Eric. And he said his goal, his daily word count is 1. Because usually once you figure out the first word, you know what the second word's going to be, and then you keep going. Because we like it. So if your word count goal is 1, knock yourself out. Going to take you a little longer to write that novel. But I bet once you write, let's say 10, maybe you get 1 sentence every day for a week. Then the next week you're going to do 2. Week after that, you're going to do a whole paragraph every day. Then after that, you can do a page. Page is about 250 words. So I'm really only looking at 8 pages a day. That's it. I think Faith Hunter used to say she shoots for 10 pages a day, so 2,500 words. So don't try to kill yourself just because somebody on the internet said that you have to write 5,000 words a day to be successful. I've written 5,000 words in a day. I've written a novella in a week. It showed. It looked a lot like a novella I wrote in a week. No, I'm not going to tell you which one unless you come up to me at a convention. And I don't want to do it again. I was cooked. I couldn't write for 2 weeks after that. I was just like, I could barely form a coherent sentence. So find your numbers. And then let me know what they are. Drop a note down there in the comments. Till next time, I gotta go see what the hell this cat is into now. Peace, y'all.